Welcome to the Zero Breach Zone, the ultimate podcast dedicated to safeguarding K-12 schools from cyber threats and beyond.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Phil, your co-host guiding you through the intersection of cybersecurity and education.
Each episode, Phil and I will dive into conversations that matter, breaking down the latest cybersecurity challenges that schools face.
And we're not doing it alone. We'll be bringing some experts in the field from the EdTech world and beyond for interviews, getting their take on the most pressing issues.
Plus, every episode will wrap up with a recurring segment, The Parting Tool, where we'll share a top tip or tool that you can start using immediately to stay ahead of breaches, phishing, and everything in between.
So, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you here with us. Let's not just listen, but let's take some action. Connect with us on LinkedIn and other socials and join the conversation. Together, we can build a strong community dedicated to protecting our schools. All right, welcome back to the Zero Breach Zone. Today we have a wonderful packed session and time here today. We've got a wonderful guest here, Dr. Adam Phyall. Before I introduce you a little bit further with him, I want to say, hey, Andy, how you doing?
Doing pretty well, Phil. How about you?
Good to have you back. You can see I'm wearing my favorite shirt today. At any rate, it's good to be back in the studio here recording live with our good friend, Dr. Adam Phyall. I've known Adam for probably, 10, 15 years now? At least 10 years, I think. We've gone way back with different things with Tech and Learning magazine, and we both got to experience the wonderful Skywalker Ranch together for the very first time. That was a phenomenal opportunity. Maybe we'll have to do a session on that sometime, Andy, talking about what a cool place that is, and talk about innovation. Yeah, that's the innovation hub of the world, if you will. But at any rate, Dr. Adam Phyall has been a CTO for a long time. He's doing something a little different now, but we're going to talk about that today. Without further ado, everybody, welcome Adam.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate you taking up some time and having me on your show. You could have any guest in the world, but you chose to have me, so I greatly appreciate that.
It wasn't hard to choose. You're a great guy, and you're everywhere, man. I know you're on the board of ISTE, and so I see you there, and I see you in all kinds of different webinars. I know you were a keynote speaker at FETC, which Andy and I were at and doing some broadcasting from back in January. I know you'll probably be again a featured speaker next year. You are all over this planet. It's no wonder you're one of the top 30 or top 20 maybe influencers, EdTech influencers. You were named that recently, and so congratulations on that. Your resume just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Hey, my thing is, if you're doing the right work, people will notice, and I'm all about sharing it. And that's ultimately why I do what I do. I really enjoy, of course, helping students directly, but I feel as though if I'm doing the right practices, I want to make sure that everyone can learn from this and implement some of these same strategies in their spaces. I've just been able to have these opportunities to share what works and outside of my district, outside of my state. And so I just really enjoy that. And so when you have a platform like this podcast, being able to hop on and talk with some experts also and help others, that's what it's all about. And it's about just getting the right word out to everyone.
Yeah,
that's great. And Phil, you mentioned you've known Adam for 10 plus years. I've known Adam for about 10 plus minutes. The instant he started speaking, I recognized instantly from Undisrupted. So big fan of your podcast as well, and have been listening for a long time. You started talking, I felt instantly like, I already know Adam. We're good. We can go. So.
Yeah, long time listener, first time caller, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Adam, tell us a little bit. How'd you get into EdTech? What did you start out as a teacher, or were you a tech guy? Tell us a little bit about the background there.
Yeah. So fun story. I was in college. I was that kid that I was a pretty smart kid, can get A's or B's without studying too hard. When I got to college, I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So initially I was like this occupational therapy major. I was like, even then I knew to look up with career trajectories, income. Okay, I could probably make some money if I do this job. So that's the only reason why I got in there. But then when I got in school, I realized that I was leaning more to education. I started tutoring some friends in a math class, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you did such a great job explaining it. Have you ever thought about education?" And I was like, "Oh no, and not me." So fast forward, made a transition. Didn't do math. Science was my calling in education. Started doing that, but I was that science teacher that always had the tech in the classroom, found ways to do some things in the classroom to the point where people were like, hey, you should go show other people what you're doing. And so I started spending more time out of my classroom than in my classroom, helping other teachers with technology. So from there, I became a director of instructional technology in Hickman Mills in Kansas City, Missouri. I got the chance to go back to my original school district that I was at in Newton County and take on the director of technology and media services role there. And so I came from the classroom lens with the instructional side. So as that tech director that leaned more on the instructional side, I had to learn the information system side. You can't have all these cool tools and things of that nature if you don't understand what's required on the back end, what's required to keep your network secure, because people are sharing data and anybody has access. All these things you have to learn on that side. So I greatly appreciated my journey from starting the instructional side to getting to that information system side and learning how this whole picture works together.
Wow, that's incredible. So I got to ask, in your role as a science teacher, did you ever, and using technology obviously in your classroom, did you ever have your director of technology come to you and say, hey, you're violating this acceptable use policy, or you're that piece of software or that tool that you're using is maybe a cybersecurity risk? Did you ever have that happen to you?
I will say I'm young enough and old enough, so I fit in this line where if it was doing anything that was in violation, it wasn't a rule yet.
Okay. All right.
It wasn't common knowledge that we shouldn't do this or this shouldn't be open at the time. Yeah. I was on an early enough edge, but I don't think that's ever, I'm pretty sure I was violating something at some point in time, but they just didn't know or didn't have enough experience to say that I was. So when that comes up, I get it as a teacher who wants to try this brand new platform or tool, because I was that teacher. Yeah. I was the one saying, okay, I'm going to push the envelope until somebody tells me no. But in my mind, I thought I was using the right tool for the kids, not just because there was something cool out there. It was a gap that I saw in curriculum. So let me use this tool to get where I needed to go. So I do get there's so many teachers out there, and as in our roles, we don't want to stifle that creativity, but we have to do a better job because it wasn't done for me at that time because it didn't really exist. Letting teachers know about the data privacy and security and how certain programs don't meet our snuff test, or they're not in whatever our state policy or guidelines are. That's why we can't use these things. Because this is what could happen if we do that. Yeah. I think by doing that, it really gets the teachers on our team versus it's, the big bad tech department said. It's them really understanding, this is why they're saying no, because this product doesn't suit this other need that's even larger than student improvement. It may be student safety. Yeah. Because that's our number one goal. We want to educate all kids. We want to keep them safe all the time when they're in our buildings. So safety trumps what you're trying to do in the classroom on that point.
And this is one of my favorite sections of the show when we talk about kind of background and how you got that transition into tech and just seeing everybody's pathway there and how many of us share kind of those similar pathways, and which said really resonated with me. I was coming from that instructional side around the same time period. And I really enjoyed being in that Wild West setting where there are so many tools available. There weren't really rules yet. There weren't really regulations, or at least not that were taught or communicated. Yeah. It's a special time period. And it totally resonates with you, what you're saying about, that's something your teachers you want to encourage, that finding the right tool for the right thing. And so often in our position, the answer is no, or people assume the answer is no. And especially around AI and all the things, all the new AI tools that are coming 1,000 miles a minute, it's really important to get in front of that. But
if I could add, one of the things that makes that even better is getting them to the point where they're saying no. So we're not the ones saying, they just like parent child, but even with my kids, getting my kids to the point where they won't come and ask me, Daddy, can I? Because you already know what the answer is. Yeah. And you know why that's the answer. So you don't even think about asking. Once we get our staff and students to the point where they see the children, the first thing they look at is whatever our guy, they're like, I'm not even going to waste any more time looking at this because it doesn't hit that. That's where I think that's everybody in technology's dream situation where you get there, where truly, if they're bringing something to you, it's an ask because they're like, I'm not sure. Are you sure? Because it checks out these boxes. Can you take it the next step? I mean, that's what we want them to get to, that point where we're spending less time and on the things that are straight up no's, but the ones that, it's a yes based on our systems, but it really shouldn't be, because it's asking us other questions that we hadn't thought of yet. Or let's bring it in, or let's just bring our committee together and determine whether or not we need to have this AI tool because it's not currently well defined whether this is a yes or a no. So let's have a conversation about what the good or the bad if we are using this platform.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a dream. I know we're not there yet. We're not there
I'm
yet.
a dreamer
in our district. Yeah, you're definitely a dreamer, but that's okay. That's the innovation part of things. I know part of knowing you for many years, I know you are a strong proponent about inclusive education, and you've used your opportunities of different platforms to be able to teach about that, to teach and to bring people into understanding lights that maybe we hadn't understood or didn't quite get. And I've learned a lot from you in that way. Talk about how that's played a part in your working with teachers to understand safety, but also for safety for all students, not just, that the gifted students or this particular level of student, whoever they are.
You know what? Like my whole journey on making sure we have the right voices in the room, it goes all the way back to when I was a student in school. And I remember one year I was they were doing the handbook, the student handbook or whatever the case may be. And I was a student person on there. And we were having conversations about these various rules. And I started sharing why, from a student perspective, this rule didn't make sense and it really made more work or whatever. And it blew the mind of everyone there, even the administrators who were sitting on this group as well, because it was like a superintendent of this and a teacher of there. They had no idea because they were making rules for students and hadn't talked to students. You need different voices. But then I said, hey, I don't speak for all students. I can speak for me and my platform and my shared experience of peers of my age, but you may want to get others. So it wasn't even about a black-white thing. It was just about, hey, we got to have multiple perspectives and voices so we can understand that we're meeting all the needs. And so when I think about in our spaces and what we're doing, when we're putting policies and rules and structures in place, we need to have the right voices and the understanding that we have our staff that needs to be heard and represented. We need to have our parents that are heard and represented. I know when the first time I did my mobile learning policy and we were rolling out devices and sending things home, we hadn't thought about some of the parents who have after school care for their kids and needed to store their devices before they picked it up. Yeah. We didn't have a parent on our group that had that experience to bring that to us. So that wasn't heard. So we had to go back, of course, make modifications. So I think you only are strengthened by your policies and the procedures and things that you're putting in place by having a diverse group of folks sitting at the table from different experiences to bring those different perspectives, because we like to think we are open-minded people and think about everybody's opinions or why they need to do this, why they need to do that. But until you don't, when you find out, we actually need better Wi-Fi down at the baseball fields. But we didn't have anybody that were softball and baseball teams on our staff. We talked about the network topography and all these things. So it's really ensuring you have these voices that you're able to implement policies that will be the most inclusive of everyone that you have the privilege to serve in a school district.
Yeah. When you think about something we started here is putting Wi-Fi on some of our buses, our activities buses, and trying that now that E-rate has allowed for monies for that. And that's been interesting to see how. Yeah, for now, but you got to strike while the iron's hot or type of thing. But that's been working really well. But then thinking about our community centers in a lot of ways where kids are going in between, that's not so much the latchkey things that maybe we grew up with in the 70s and 80s and 90s, but now kids are actually going to not necessarily daycare, but just someplace to hang out until, their parents get off of work and they're able to be places. Yep. Thinking about expanding our Wi-Fi network to some of those community locations like that, you don't get unless you've got, like you said, a diverse committee to be able to bring those perspectives into play.
Yep. You really find out the things that you think about your community when you have the people that are part of those communities can talk to you. Because to your point, we were talking about our after school program and teachers were like, what about some of their kids still hanging around but they're in this room that was rarely used at that one school that had really bad Wi-Fi. Yeah. We didn't really know there was a gap in that space until one of the teachers were like, my kids are there. They have to sit on this side of the room. And we were like, oh, wow. We totally missed that because in the map we looked at before, it was like a storage unit. Yeah. So we never realized that it was updated for a space that kids were doing work in until we had the right person in the room to tell us that.
I know you've also done some great work. Obviously, you did fantastic work as a CTO, but something changed along the way and said, Hey, Adam, how would you like to come to the national level and evangelize in that way, with both with ISTE, being on the board of ISTE, but also in your role now? Tell our listeners a little about what are you doing now?
During the pandemic, a lot of us, of course, were doing a lot of things remotely and doing a lot of work that way, and got a chance to double down on some of the work that I was already doing with Future Ready Schools. In addition to working in my district, they were doing a lot of things around how districts were getting connected with the community and doing different things. So I had an opportunity to share those resources at a larger level. Fast forward in 2022. They decided to expand their team at Future Ready Schools and then I saw it. They were like, "Hey, this is out here. I know you love the work you're doing in your district. Name in the hat, see what happens."
Yeah.
And so that was a tough decision for me. I still live in the community. I still work with the folks in the district. My team members literally took over for us. So like a passing of the baton. So I'm still connected. So leaving was a really tough decision. And not the folks, if I ever got an opportunity to leave, it would have to be the right opportunity. And so coming over to Future Ready Schools, I get a chance to be their director of professional learning and leadership. And with that, I'm still in the EdTech sphere because I work with their Future Ready Schools side, which is really ensuring that students, no matter of zip code, area code, state of residence, origin of birth, whatever the case may be, that our students have what they need. Especially when we look at some of our students, rather marginalized groups, traditionally marginalized across history. Sure, these students have the resources that they need. So it gave me a chance to do my heart work and my EdTech work marrying together across the country. I work with a lot of districts around developing their future ready plans that are best practices. We have our gears, curriculum instruction and assessment, personalized professional learning, budget and resources, all these gears, and how they all work together to improve our system. So I get a chance to work with schools as they start developing those plans and implementing them system wide. So the stuff I love to do that I was doing in my district, I now get a chance to work with districts across the country doing that work. I love it. I think it's a good fit for me right now.
It's coming through with the passion. I can hear the passion there, and that's pretty awesome. Talk about the gears a little bit. I know you just recently released some cool things, which we'll talk about in a second. But before that, think about, obviously this is zero breach zone you're talking to here. So we want zero breach for our school districts. Where does cybersecurity play in the future ready gears?
The cool thing about it is when you look at something as big as cybersecurity, it really hits all the gears.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about curriculum, instruction, and assessment, personalized, specialized learning. But really what I lean to are going to be your robust infrastructure and your when you talk about your infrastructure, because you got to have the network be secure, you got to have the firewall, you got to have the right hardware on those things, and then budget and resources, of course, because that's where you got to have the money to get all of this stuff. So how are you funding all of this stuff? And then you also have your data and privacy gear. How are you protecting? How are you sharing this data? What does this plan look like, not only today, but moving forward in a school district? And with the Future Ready plan, you're not inside a technology plan. So you're supposed to have your curriculum folks in the room, superintendents in the room, library and media specialists, those community members, as I mentioned earlier, having the right voices in the room as you are developing this plan. So it doesn't just live in this tech space with tech directors. Now, all these people are seeing how all these things fit in together, because that's often the times where I see there's friction in school systems when you may have the curriculum instruction department really don't see how they fit into technology. The finance department and your budget and resources gear, they really don't see how they fit into technology. So whatever, you guys are trying to get all this money because you just like money and stuff. You want to buy the most expensive switch, whatever that is.
Those silos.
Yes. So by having all those gears, everybody can see themselves, those gears, because it's a gear for community partnerships. So everybody is now seeing how they fit into this vision of a learner, because it's learner centered. That's in the center of our framework. So everybody's now seeing how they fit in to make this machine, this cog, that's where those gears are just turning. And so therefore you're getting more buy-in when you have your plan. Oftentimes I've seen districts create a tech plan, and that's where it lives. Technology department. You submit it to your superintendent. If you do, say, hey, we have this plan, or whatever the case may be, but they're not looking at it because they weren't a part of it. They put it in that folder on the say you had one, but they weren't a part of writing it. They're not really understanding it. And same thing with your curriculum folks. So having that system-wide plan where everybody's getting in there, that you're having actionable goals where you're reporting out, talking about how you've been able to secure your data, how the network, how you've been able to block all of these attacks. Those are the things that people want to hear. They think that's what happens every day, which, it actually does. But if you have the right system in place, you're keeping everything nice and safe.
Well, there's a lot there. Something I was thinking about when you were talking is the fact that the Future Ready group provides a lot of these resources for free, right? That's
free 99.
Free 99. Yeah. Which I know I had a chance to see you speak at, what was it? At the AIR show, AI show out at ASU GSV, and some really good, you had a packed house in that particular room, and there was just a lot of good things you were sharing. And I saw a lot of people nodding, oh my gosh, this is really cool. So you are getting this stuff, these tools out there for folks with your organization. And like you said, free 99, you're also doing regional things around, right, to be able to bring, so that school districts could bring these groups, a couple of members from each of the silos, if you will, to sit down and finally have that conversation together. Talk to us a little bit about that, about what is some of the regional work that you're doing as far as that goes.
Yeah, one of the big things that we're tasked with, of course, everybody is AI's on the brain everywhere. We recently released our AI by Design guide, futureready.link/AI by Design.
By design.
And really, the way we put this together, it's more about AI governance. We want you to get the right people in the room and have the conversations around, what does AI look like in our district? What does it look like in our community? What questions do we need to ask so we are educated to get the right answers, to put the proper policies and procedures in place? So what we do, we've taken our gears that I mentioned earlier, and we've broken out various questions that you should ask as it pertains to that particular gear. And it's really not like the end all be all list, but it's to get you going. And then you have the opportunity, now that you're here and your gears are turning, what are some other curriculum instruction and assessment questions around AI that we should be asking? And then we also give some actionable steps you could take. Okay, if this is an area of interest, here's something that you may think about doing. Not telling you to do it, not saying that you have to. Really want you to have the conversations, because you get more from having a conversation about this, and you get more people to buy in and understand how and why this is so important if you are in the room and you're guiding the conversation. It's a lot of people say, let's bring the right people to the table. I'm a fan of, let's throw away that other table and build one together.
All right.
Because now that table is going to reflect the people who are sitting there. Maybe we need a side that's lower than the other. Maybe we need some other things on the table, because the initial table didn't work for everybody. So let's make a table that's going to work for everybody as we are implementing this process, this program. So we've been doing that. And right now we're in the process of also developing our AI boot camp. So it'll be a 6-week course that anyone can enroll into. Same process. We want to have a few members of your team. That is one of the few things that we do charge for. So we have a few services here or there, but it's a very small cost that we try to work with districts. Specifically, we have a lot of districts who qualify for Title I services. So we want to make sure that we are cognizant of every school district's financial needs. With that, we also have our in-person events, and we're planning those out right now. We're looking to actually be in the Chicago area in the fall. So we're looking at doing those, but then those are totally free. We ask you to bring as many members of your team as you want to, but we want to make sure we have the right folks in the room. So if you are someone who sits in a district leadership position, if you are a library media specialist, instructional coach, those are the folks we want to make sure that are in the room where they can take this information and go back and implement it in their spaces. But you find out more about that information, of course, you can go to futureready.org. And on our events, we're going to have all those listed early summer. We want to get those out there for everybody as you start making those schedules for the fall. So crazy to think we're already thinking about it.
Yep.
As Andy and I was talking earlier, that's the time in tech where most of the work happens during the summer.
Yeah.
But we're already there. So that should be coming out early summer, so you can make those schedules ready for the fall.
Yeah. And we'll make sure we have the links available there when we publish this particular episode and what have you. But that's awesome. And the AI by Design, that also can be found there as well.
Yep. AI by Design. It's not just Adam making this up. I promise you, I can make up a whole lot of stuff, but I'm not nearly an expert in all these fields. Yeah. So what we were able to do as we put this together with experts across the country, would lean on some of our future ready advisors, such as yourself, Phil, and say, hey, what do you guys think about this document? Is it missing? What holes, what gaps are here? So we've also leaned on practitioners as we're doing this work. And the beautiful thing about what we're doing right now with AI, this is a plane that's being built while it's in the air.
Yep.
And while we're still trying to figure out how this air thing works, that's literally what's happening with AI. So we want everyone to understand that yes, there's a download coming, but don't worry about the download because the download is going to be fluid. We're changing things. So of course the web pages are going to be the most up-to-date resource as we're pushing it out information.
All right.
Yeah. As you're talking about that, the whole building the airplanes you fly model, I've talked to a lot of districts at conferences over the past year and went to an AI seminar at a local college a few weeks ago. And one of the things I'm getting from talking to school districts is a lot of people aren't sure where they are and feel like they're behind. So as you talk to districts and looked at resources and put resources together, do you have any kind of, I don't know, maybe an attaboy or don't sweat it? You're not behind, like, what's your opinion on kind of the flow that people are going with and how they're getting on board with AI and governance in particular?
The thing is, to your point, you're not behind. It's almost like that scene. If you gave everybody like a puzzle and you put them in separate rooms, you think the other person in the room next to you is further along with the puzzle than you are. And all of you don't know that the picture isn't the same as the pieces that you have all at the same spot anyway.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now with this. Yeah. So I tell most districts, hey, you're at the very beginning. Just figure out what's best for you in your district. Because if you had a different district, you'd be further ahead because your stakeholders would have wanted you to have something done faster and sooner than you have it now. So you're doing it in the right time for your district, for the people that you serve. But the biggest thing is check out the resources like ours, our AI by Design guide, but you have AI EDU that has some great resources out, commonsense.org. Check out those resources that are out there. Find a resource, check it out, and just do your homework. That's the biggest thing. Do your homework around this stuff and see what's happening because you're not behind. No one has figured this out at all.
That's an encouraging
and if they tell you that it's figured out, run.
Yeah, I'm still getting questions all the time where things I thought we had already answered or solved, and no, there's another bent to that idea, and oh boy. I had teachers the other day. We had our tech committee meeting, and a couple of my teachers came to me and said, "Hey," or they were part of the committee. What can we do to start blocking ChatGPT? And can we block it and just use the tools that we are recommending as a district? So we use a couple of AI tools that I won't mention right now, but can we just narrow it down to those two and block everything else? And at as soon as that was stated by one teacher, another teacher said, "Wait a minute, I kind of ChatGPT and it works well for my class." And then you realize, yeah, it's a whack-a-mole situation. You can't necessarily block it. The kids are going to have access to it through other ways anyway. Even if we do block it, they're going to find a way because we're teaching kids to be problem solvers. And if we would just stop teaching kids to be problem solvers, maybe they wouldn't look away for the workarounds. But,
yeah. If I can, Phil, I got one for you. Here's one that people are going to have to deal with coming sooner than later. Right now, I'm wearing my Plod Note pen. I know they're not a sponsor of the podcast or me, unless they want to. Nope. But I got this thing, and it's an AI note taker.
Yeah.
So it just runs and it listens. It holds the conversation on the pen itself. And on the back end, of course, AI can do all this stuff. And it can, if I was in a Zoom meeting and it was listening in, it could tell me all the stuff. Oh, this is what Adam is supposed to be doing post meeting.
Yeah.
Here is the checklist of acts he should do, so on and so forth. It can do all that. So now think about what rules are we going to put in place now?
Yeah.
When this is hanging on my necklace. Yeah. Next thing, they're going to be part of your AirPods.
Or
your kids walk around with an AirPod or your glasses. I could wear it on my wrist and you wouldn't even know. What guidelines or safety rail guards are we going to have to put in for schools for wearable AI? Because this doesn't have to connect to the network to work. Right. Whenever it gets plugged into the network, that's when it'll upload. Yeah. So once again, what are the rules now? What are the rules? Or how do things change?
Yeah.
What questions do we need to ask around this?
That in itself is a great question, but that kind of goes along with the old banning and stuff like that's going around. And I know two things on that is, like, our district has been really good about not banning, but putting some guidelines in place and say no cell bell to bell with cell phones, but the kids can have them in between classes. But our governor, on the other hand, is wanting to create legislation because the state next to us already has the legislation that ban cell phones. So even though we've got a pretty good thing working for our district, our teachers actually like it, we may have to change our way of doing things because now the state law says you have to do it this way. And that can affect the things that we've been thinking about. Is it can affect our students. A lot of times our students will use their cell phones as a digital hall pass. They scan into school that way. And now if a cell phone's banned, now we have to do attendance the old-fashioned way, paper and pencil and all this. And we're not getting good data and metrics out of that to be able to find out who our students are that are at risk because they're not showing up to school because it takes so long to tally up all the tally marks on the paper. We're going in circles, I think.
I saw a weird thing, and this is a sad thing, but it's a good thing as well. They were showing this school app for almost like that with the Life 360 kind of tool or whatever. But basically, if there's ever an active shooter thing, whatever in there, it will automatically ping to your Wi-Fi in your building. So the kids don't have to be connected on cellular. So it gets the location of every dot in your building. So you immediately know who's in the building. If the kid is signed into that app, it gives that signal and lets it know that Adam is in the building in the bathroom with his phone. It sends that out if the kids download that app. Something like that, which I think is a shame we have to have that.
Yeah.
But it's a cool resource that we could possibly lose because of somebody coming up with some legislation, thinking at it from one perspective, and you think you're doing good.
Yeah.
Which I get needs to be done. There should be some controls. I'm glad you guys talked about how you have a system in place. But it doesn't necessarily have to happen at the state level. Because Georgia, the same way, I think K-8, schools have to have a policy in place to ban those now, starting in 2026. Yeah. So I get it.
That wraps back around to what you were talking about earlier about having that diversity of voices at the table for all the different scenarios. The state legislators aren't thinking about the functional day-to-day, what this looks like in a school. They're just thinking cell phones make focus bad. Yes. Goodbye cell phones. And back to that, having the right people in the conversation and not just unilaterally deciding that this is the best course of action. And I've seen several school districts where either the state or the school district has made a law or a rule about cell phone usage and not included students. Yep. And you immediately start seeing feedback from students and parents about what about in this scenario? What about in this scenario? And we can, especially now, since the cell phone is the kid's most direct lifeline to their parents during the school day. I think back in the day of something changes, sports is canceled or something. Yep. And then all of a sudden I've got 20 kids who are in line to use the phone. Yep. And then the office is overwhelmed and kids down the hallway. So there are a lot of impacts that if you don't have everybody in the room to mention all the impacts and all the places it reaches, it can blow up.
Yeah, because it was one of those things, even when you think about us as adults, because let's be honest, how many of us have issues with our cell phones? We complain about how battery life is so short because we're on it so much. Yeah. If you're putting these guardrails and rules in place for the students, what about the staff? Because especially when you start getting into your middle and high school, I don't know about you guys, but a 14-year-old, I think she's maybe 24 at times. Yeah. So you need to make sure those conversations are in place when you're doing all this stuff and having the right folks in the room, because the devices have changed. Their connectivity, the way the kids are connected to these things, it's totally changed things. I know my daughter, she uses Apple Pay on her phone most of the time. So she doesn't have a credit card on her. So when she wants to get something out of the vending machine at school, she uses her tap to pay. So it is a wearable once again to these kids. And when we do our future ready sessions, one thing that we have is a student panel. The students were saying during the pandemic, we relied on this technology to keep us connected to the world. Yep. So we've developed a different kind of connection to our cell phones than you've ever had. It's a more intimate relationship with us because this is how we connected to the world. It blew my mind because I hadn't thought that, but you had this generation that literally for 2 years, this was how they saw everything. They saw the world through this for 2 years. Somebody's going to write I don't know if you're working on your PhD or EDD, Andy, but this may be something you want to write a paper about. But the generation, their dependency on this. And she was saying, so try to take something away from somebody that they feel is attached to them almost like an arm. That's why you may have cases where kids are going a little too far when their phones are taken away from them, because you've taken away something that has truly become a part of them to their being. And if they're missing it, then they're freaking out. Because I know if I were to walk out the house without my wallet, I'm like, oh my gosh, my wallet, it's like my identity. I have to go at home. I have to get it. Or even if I'm out and I don't have it, I'm constantly thinking about my wallet. What if something happens?
Searching the back pocket all the time.
And with all the wearables, my watch will tell me, hey, you left your phone sitting in the house. Oh my gosh. They're all connected.
But that's their friend. Yeah, it's all connected. That's their thing. We have to think about it from multiple levels. But once again, having that kid's voice in the room to tell you that, it makes you because I didn't think about it till I heard it from a kid. And I was like, oh my gosh, real.
Yeah. And we talked about lived experiences. They now have a different lived experience than we did growing up. And that's, when you think about the AI guidelines and things as well, I know our state is wanting to put together some AI guidelines, just like they want to do the cell phone ban stuff. They're putting these AI guidelines. We've already put that into place, but now the state is going to mandate that's part of the acceptable AI. You have to mention something about AI usage in your acceptable use policy, which we've had for a couple of decades now, the acceptable use policy, but now that how it pertains to AI. And fortunately, we've put some things in place in our district with our AI guidelines for classrooms and things like that. So I was telling our committee the other day that I feel like we're ahead of the ballgame on that, because now the state's going to require that of every district. Yep. And those districts who haven't even gone down that path yet will be at a disadvantage. But at the same time, we've got something that's working for us, and now the state might come back and say, it needs to really be this, it needs to have this and this in it. And so then we're going to have to kind of backpedal and redesign and make exceptions and all of that stuff.
But here's the thing that I wonder also with that, because a lot of these things are coming in place without having conversations with tech, with quote unquote big tech. So when we talk about generative AI and AI, how there's so much AI that's been embedded into things that before we really talked about Gen AI, for example, your predictive text on your iPads or whatever, that's AI. Yeah. And it's gotten smarter and smarter to predictive text and all that kind of stuff. So are we going to remove all predictive text? Are we going to remove spell check? Because even spell check is a form of predictive text. Are we going to have to tell the companies, hey, you can only use this percentage of generative AI to make your spell checker smart because we don't want our kids to use AI in class? Like, I don't know. Because I think y'all have seen the little Facebook trend going around where it gives you a sentence starter and then you just keep hitting the space bar and make a complete sentence from that. So you could literally write a paper with predictive text. So it's one of those things. So how are we going to regulate what an industry does when they're building their hardware and putting AI in there? So when you have somebody saying, oh, they cannot use AI in school, as a lawyer, based on the language, I can come in with the actual machine you gave the kids had AI in it. Technically, you're a violation of your own policy. So throw this case out. My kid must be the valedictorian because you didn't. It becomes those things because AI is not a switch to turn on and off.
Right.
That's like saying you can't use RAM on your computer. It's embedded in things now. We need to really define what kind of AI we're talking about here. And the different types of AI, because I think we've been painting with too broad of a brush. Even in this conversation, there are times where I was talking about Gen AI, language model, and I wasn't. So I think we have to be more specific with the kind of AI we talk about with the policies and things that we're writing.
Yeah, my superintendent talked to me yesterday. He said, "Hey, Phil, I want to really investigate in Conmigo big time, because I think we're not utilizing tutoring as much as we should. And we spend a lot on tutoring our students or having tutoring services for our students when Conmigo is free over there, and why not? And it's on demand as opposed to, you go to tutoring at this select time and it's only available, this slots of the day and what have you, where Conmigo is available anywhere the kid is available." And so he wants me to look into that type of thing. At the same time, if we're going to ban it, but yet they need it, I was thinking about your little plod there. You've got that's your personal assistant. It's listening to even our podcast as we're recording right now. It's listening to that. It's going to give you feedback on it down the road. It's going to analyze. It's going to give you a summary. That is your personal Ask Jeeves right there. And we've had Ask Jeeves forever, right? But you got it there. And if we're not teaching our kids to have those tools that they are going to have around them, whether it's AI glasses or what have you, translation glasses, this is their world, and these are the tools that they will be using. Just like you said, it's how they connected during the pandemic. This is how they're going to connect to everything they do, their careers, their friends, their relatives, you name it. And for us to try to even think that we could ban something that's going to be helpful and be part of their daily lives, I don't know how.
It's one of those things. I'm willing to bet if we did enough history digging and everything, there's probably somebody out there who thought that we still should teach a typewriter versus a computer.
I knew you were going
I'm
there.
pretty sure you have a typewriter cult out there that's like the electricity could go out one day. You still got to learn how to with the ink and the. So I'm pretty sure those people existed during that time. Yeah. So fast forward to what we're talking about, like you mentioned with AI, at what point are we going to have to realize that this is the way things are moving forward? When do we get that tipping point? Now we truly are teaching, as you mentioned, to have AI as this co-pilot, no pun intended there, to show you the light, maybe some type of Gemini in the sky. Let's see right there, another product drop.
Boom.
That's really the next stage, to then start prompting your AI assistant to do the things to get you ultimately where you want to go. If somebody gives you a question about, I remember years ago that the app came out, Wolfram Alpha.
Yes.
And it was like, people were like freaking out, like, you can put this thing in there and give you, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
And photo math and all that.
Yeah. So these are these things now where they're real. Give me multiple points and then I can give you this answer as I'm just talking to my AI assistant. I can tell it right now, hey, my front yard is this by this. I'm trying to oversee my yard. What should I get? And it's dry in this area. I can just tell it all this stuff and it'll give me all this stuff. And the next step would be like, would you like me to order that from, have it waiting for you? Or would you like to pick it up? Go ahead and order it and I'll pick it up in store. I need to make another. That's really where we're heading with all this stuff. So if we don't teach our students to start doing that now, they're going to not be the ones to come up with how to program or make that tool to make the glasses to do that stuff, or be that back end programmer, because we didn't give them access to it at an early phase to get into it. Yeah. And they're going to miss their window to get that inspiration going and get started. So we deserve it. Our kids deserve that. Again, I'm not going to be Pollyanna about this. We don't want to oversaturate our kids with tech. I mentioned earlier, my kids, they're on break now. I kicked them out of the house to go play in the sun. So, so I get it, but we still have to be realist about where we're heading with this stuff when we think about how quickly it's changed in a matter of a year. Yeah. You know, think about where it's going to go in the next 3 years.
Very true. And AI right now is literally the worst it's ever going to be, and the least sophisticated and the least helpful. So it's only onward and upward, and also magnifying the scale of the negative side effects. Really, we can't be blind to it.
I mean, just imagine being able to just have it run your network for any vulnerabilities, also then tell you probable fixes and how long it should take. And this thing about now, the tech director, I'm able to manage my team a little bit better, because they say, hey, the average time to repair this thing is, and if that's not my specialty as a tech director, and I don't necessarily know the ins and the outs, but then I see the time to get this job done should be, I don't know, a 4-hour job, and it's taking this guy 4 days. Yeah. Of course, I'm going extreme with this example.
Yes, sure.
But then it lets me know that, hey, maybe my guy is not that efficient at this job. Maybe I need to get him some additional training or her some additional training. Maybe I need to ask some better questions about the work that they're doing. I can help them be better at that job. And then ultimately, if we find out she's been running the game in the system, we can find out if the conversation changes. But think about using AI to assist you in your roles like that. Really maximizing the efforts of your team and being able to see where there's probable budgetary opportunities. And you're saying, hey, finance department, our AI analysis is showing that we're behind in these areas. This is projecting out. If I get the funding for this year, I can make our network where it needs to be, national average, so on and so forth. No longer, this is something that Phil made up. This is something that Andy made up. No, this is our true and tried and true AI platform that we have that has given us this and told this is what we should do. So this is the recommendation.
Data-driven decisions from the data itself. Yeah.
Now we should do something.
Yeah. This has been fantastic. We could go on, I'm sure, and talk about different examples. Something we always like to do with our podcast is have an AI tip of the day. How did you put it, Andy, normally? It's our...
the parting tip or parting tool. Tip.
So maybe Adam has a parting tip for us that we could include. If he doesn't, that's okay. I'm putting you on the spot, Adam. But Andy always has one in his back pocket for us. But if you've got a parting tip for the day, we'd love to share that with our team. That maybe it's an app or a platform or something cool that you've seen that you think could be beneficial to listeners.
One thing that I saw that was really cool going, like voice assistant, and it's once again, they're not paying me or anything, but it's a really cool thing. I saw, it's called Socrate. So great, but Socrate.
Socrates. So I'm thinking Socrates from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That's Socrates? No. Okay. All right.
Yeah. But it's a voice assistant tool, with voice and AI, and it works through an app. So you could as a teacher have your earpiece in or just run the app on your phone. But what it does, it listens for words and phrases and things of that nature. So as a teacher, let's say I taught you guys all day and I stopped by Phil's desk, said some things about Phil and his assignment. It will make a nice little report about my things that I had with Phil that day. Oh, you worked with Phil on this and this. These were some areas like that, or you had to redirect this many times, or all the little classroom things that you can listen to and give you feedback on there. And it's one of those where I see a really cool potential for like that. I think it's like in beta now, but you're doing a user sign up for it. But it looks so cool as a platform to be able to take things that you normally would do like in a class dojo or something like that, but then you're actually attaching the audio, giving you the AI run out, and it works with Power. It could work with Power School and all these things. I see a lot of potential with that.
So
because how many times have we had something where you had that moment where you said something and then you couldn't remember it later?
Yeah, all the time.
To that kid. Yeah, it's
several times
so
during
cool,
this
but in the
podcast,
classroom.
in fact.
Yes.
Yeah, so cool. But yeah, that's my favorite one right now.
Socrates, huh? Socrates. S-O-C-R-A-T?
No E. Yeah,
no E. Okay.
We'll add it in the show notes in the link below.
Yeah, great. Andy just took the notes. And actually, Socrates could have taken the notes for us. But so you're saying that's pretty much a teacher tool, right, Socrates?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because my thing is be curious within reason. Sometimes you can't try it at your workplace. Try it at home if you can. Just see what it works and then ask the right questions later. But just be curious in our space. That's when we make progress.
I think that those are some good words to live by and good words of advice there. Be curious. Never stop being curious. Mm-hmm. I think we can close out today. Appreciate your time, Dr. Adam Phyall. Having you on our podcast today really was a joy and a treat. We always like to find ways, include all voices, and be able to do the best we can to be a zero
breach
zone.
Woo. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Zero Breach Zone podcast. We hope our conversation left you feeling more informed and empowered to protect our K-12 schools from cyber threats.
A big shout out to our sponsor, CyberNut AI, for making this podcast possible. CyberNut is committed to providing security awareness training designed for schools, helping educators and students navigate the digital world with confidence.
If you want to learn more about how CyberNut can help strengthen your school's cybersecurity defenses, head over to their website, cybernut.com, and sign up for their training program. Together, we can create a safer online environment for everyone in our educational communities.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Connect with us on LinkedIn to join the conversation and help us build a strong community around cybersecurity and education.
Join us next time on the Zero Breach Zone for more insightful conversations. Stay vigilant, stay ahead, and let's keep our schools a
zero
breach
zone.